And he had his hands lifted and his face lifted up to the sky, and the sun was just beaming down on his face. And you could tell that he was just basking in the sun, right? And as I watched him, I just was overwhelmed with just the inner meaning that I felt like of what he was doing. Of in the midst of chaos, there was traffic all around him, there was loud noise, there was congestion, all of this. He didn't sit there and look down and press through of, okay, getting through the noise of life. Instead, he realized, wait, there's something good happening right here. There's the sun shining down, and he just lifted his face to the sun. And there's so much meaning to that, to me, but he just basked in the sun of where he's at. And my takeaway from that day was, okay, here I was on the way up to Huntsman, and it's like, okay, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of things that we wish they were different, but we can also take a moment to appreciate what is good, what is happening right now.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have somebody here today who's going to help you lift your face. Oh, yeah, lift your face. And there's a promise that was asked and requested, and it was fulfilled with the release of a new book coming out by Holly Curby. Holly's here with me today, and I'm so happy to have Holly on the podcast. She's a podcast host. She's a leadership coach. She does speaking, and she's a new author, and I love this. Holly, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Can you tell I have your website up as we're talking? You're right here on my screen, and you're right there talking to me. It's awesome.
Awesome, right? Dual things going on at once.
A bunch of Holly
And
this
here I
morning.
thought you had that all memorized.
See?
I was impressed.
Well, okay, I just gave away my secret. Yeah, I know. It's all things Holly today. I love having you on. Thank you for making time to be here. Congratulations on the new book. Fill us in. What's going on with the new book, Facelift? I love this.
Yeah, so excited. So Facelift actually launches on April 28th. So just coming up next Friday. We are almost there. And leading up, you can still do the pre-orders at bookstores such as Barnes & Noble, as well as, of course, all online retailers, of course, our favorite, Amazon and Walmart and all those fun things. So yeah, we're excited to gear up for the book launch next Friday and just get it out there.
Beautiful. Okay, so the story behind Facelift and the journey of writing this book. I'm really interested to get into that. First, let's talk about who the book is for. Who is this designed for?
Yeah, the book is designed for those who need a lifting of their face. And literally that could be in so many different seasons of life, right? So those who are going through a divorce, those are going through a health diagnosis, not only theirs, but maybe someone close to them. And now they find themselves a caregiver, or just going through the emotions of grieving that person has been diagnosed with a health condition. It could be someone who's just going through heartaches in life of tough times at the job, or even parenting. So whatever heartache you find yourself, whatever challenge or trial you find yourself where you're just needing a little bit of hope, a little bit of encouragement, this book is for you.
Is there a certain chapter for you that means just a little bit extra? Something that just really touches you? If you read that chapter today and reread it again and see your words on the page, it just strikes a chord for you in a special way.
Absolutely. Every single time that I had to go through and do re-edits or revisions or whatnot from the publisher, I did not like going to the chapter where my mom passes away of glioblastoma brain cancer, reliving that. I mean, all of it was hard to relive. So many people think, was this cathartic for you to go through? And it's like, no, it wasn't. I didn't want to have to go through all of this again and relive it again. But especially that chapter, it really strikes, because that's where the book comes from. The catalyst was my mom of encouraging me to write this book. And so her passing has been a great loss to our family. And yet at the same time, every single time I would go through that chapter, I'm reminded she is the reason that this is here, that this has become into fruition. So it's hard to relive that, but then it's also meaningful to know how instrumental she was on making this facelift a thing where now it's going out into the world. So awesome. Yeah, that definitely was one that still sheds a tear.
So, okay, tell me more about Mom. I want to know more about this amazing person. Come on.
Oh, she was amazing. She is amazing. So yeah, for years I went through several heartaches in a row. It just seemed to be every single year was something different, such as, and we did as a family. It's not just me, right? So whenever we go through things, it's not just us, it's those around us too that are impacted even by our own heartaches. And so one specifically was she drank some tea at a restaurant that they had mistaken sugar. They had put lye in instead, and she ended up being flown by medical helicopter to University of Utah burn unit, and she was in a coma for a couple of weeks. And anyhow, so that was one heartache in itself. And then shortly after that, the year after, my dad was diagnosed with an incurable cancer, and the list goes on and on. But through all of this, I turned to my Facebook page, and not in a way to outlash on anything or get into political stances, but it was more of just reminding myself to find life in the moment, that there is always something good, there's always a blessing, there's always an answered prayer even in the moment of even our deepest, darkest times. And also to relate with others, it's okay not to be okay. And especially that when we're going through our own heartaches, we can reach out to others and see how we can serve them, how we can encourage them. And you'll often find that it's your own cup being filled in the midst of it. Right. So I had many people that would go to mom and just encourage, actually let her know that my posts were encouraging to them and motivating, inspiring. And she just kept telling me, Holly, you need to write a book, but first you're going to have to go through it. And I thought at the time that she initially said this, it was just going through a personal heartache of mine, which I start off with in the book. But then as we went through just heartache after heartache as a family, these trials, in other words, I was able to see that no, she was actually meaning you're going to have to go through this season, this 10-year season before God can fully use it. And so the day that she died of glioblastoma brain cancer is actually the day that I promised her I would write this book. And lo and behold, just months after that, the pandemic came and there was time to write the book. And I had it written by her birthday of that year. And from there, it's been a 3-year process, but here we are.
Amazing. It would be great for her to see the book and hold that in her hands, and knowing that it was that full journey. Unfortunately, she can't do that. But what would you anticipate she would say if she had a copy of this in her hand today?
Well done, my good and faithful servant.
There you go. Well done. I love that. I love that. And okay, so this book is a tribute to your mother, but there's something in here for people to take home with them and to help them to lift their face as we go with the title. And I love the title, by the way. If you were to have feedback from this book and you met your expectations for this book, what kind of feedback would you like to hear from readers?
I would hope that it is that they have been encouraged by this, that they're not alone, that they are inspired, that there is hope in any situation. We can so often go through trials and get in this spiraling pity party or almost depression of just nothing is going right. Woe is me. And it's like, no, there's always someone going through something else. And it's not about comparing battle scars, but it can be an opportunity to encourage each other. And also, we never know what our trials might be preparing us for. Some of them are preparing us to help others in their time of need. And so just inspiring them that there is hope no matter whatever situation they're going through, and then equipping them that they will have felt equipped, whether it be dealing with grief or forgiveness or the importance of having a tribe to come along and encourage each other, or even reaching out to their community and making a difference as a result. We don't all have to go out and write a book, but we could be an advocate. We could mentor. We could get involved in our community of providing meals or go sitting and reading with people or writing encouragement cards or note cards to people, doing a phone call, taking a meal. There's so many different ways that we can use our story, and we all have them to be able to then give back and make a difference in this world.
Amazing. Does the book correspond with the podcast at all? Because I'd like to talk about that as well.
Yes, it does. So that was a journey that I had no clue what even to prepare for. As I was approaching literary agents and, of course, publishers, they kept telling me that the acquisitions editors would keep telling me, you've got to start a podcast in preparation for a book launch. And I thought, what? I had never even listened to a podcast before. I was so naive when it came to this. And I was like, what am I doing? But I heard it enough times. And, some things can fall on deaf ears, but other times when you hear it a time or two, you're like, oh, I should probably do this or look into this. So I started researching podcasting, and it all launched from there. And from there, my goal was, when I got my master's degree, people kept asking, what are you going to do with it? I'm like, I don't know. I just want to love people. So whatever I can do to love people. And so looking at my podcast, again, I hadn't written the book yet. So I wasn't exactly sure where to go with all this. It wasn't completed. And so I thought, well, when it comes down to it, I want to encourage people. I want to help provide inspiration to people, and I want to equip them for whatever's going on. And so that became the basis of the podcast. And then from there, as the book morphed into completion, they just clicked. They perfectly clicked.
And that's the one thing I'm hoping to see more of, is amazing women starting podcasts and sharing your voice and getting out there. There's a need for that in podcast world. And it's great to see that you're doing that. What excites you about the show? And if somebody comes to your podcast after listening to you here today, what can they expect?
One thing I love about the show is it is something for everything. And that is something that I think I could be criticized on, as you haven't found your niche, so to speak. It's not just one thing. It's not just leadership. It's not just being a mom. It's not just one thing, but it's more of where anyone can drop in and find something for them. And it's not that I'm trying to cast the net large and see what catches. I want to be able to provide something that goes along with that encouragement, that inspiration, and that equipping. So you'll find, talking with a lawyer who talks about preparing for the unexpected. And that goes along with exactly where we found ourselves when mom was in the hospital in her coma from being poisoned from that tea. We had no clue. We didn't have a health directive. We didn't have some of these things that we needed. So he helps equip us for that as a result of something that I went through in my own life. Another thing might be in leadership. We talk with a gentleman who just retired in his career, over 28 years in the car business of a general manager. And he talks about being a leader others will follow. And that doesn't just apply as an executive role somewhere. That also applies even as a mom in your own home. Right. So you can find value in that. And then right now, I'm so excited about our series that we're kicking off. It just kicked off this week, of embracing hope in our heartaches. And we have special guests who are coming on, sharing about their own heartaches they've gone through and how they have embraced hope. So this week we have David Figura, who has shared with us his journey through cerebral palsy and walking us through how people told him he would never talk or walk or write, read. And here he has, just finishing his college degree in psychology, I believe it was, or sociology. So anyhow, it's an amazing story. And so I love to be able to help other people shine, but then also for all of us listening, be encouraged, be inspired, be equipped, and then go out there and do something with it. Have tangible takeaways where you can go and implement something today.
Awesome. Okay, so let's jump back to your initial push and suggestion to start a podcast. I'm so happy to hear someone kind of leading you that way, because we need more podcasts, is what I'm a big fan. So for an author that's listening to our conversation today and they're like, Holly, you're telling me I need to start a podcast? Same thing you said, like, what's a podcast? So just explain to an author that's listening what you're seeing as a benefit of having a podcast in relation to your book.
Yeah, absolutely. So one, you start having a voice. So not everyone is going to go out and pick up your book, right? But they might stumble across one of your podcast episodes and listen to it. A 5-minute, 15-minute, at most 30-minute podcast listen is going to be a lot easier and a lot more enticing than going up and picking up a book that they have never heard of or heard of the author and trying to read through it for hours, right? So it's something where you can immediately have a voice. 2, you can have an impact. So what is it that you're trying to achieve in your book? And there's where you can take your impact in your podcast also and make a difference, truly being able to reach out and give back. But then also you're going to be able to start gaining those followers, as much as I hate using that word, but those who are your loyal listeners, and therefore they're going to carry over into other things that you do. So I've had people who start listening to the podcast, and then they start coming to me for leadership coaching or consulting for their business, or now they're an advocate in their own right in different areas because they've heard the podcast, right? And they're able to then promote the podcast and what I'm doing in their own areas, in their own avenues. So it can definitely just have legs that just kind of grow on their own, but it's a great opportunity to complement what you're doing on the side with your book.
Awesome. This is another touch point where somebody can be part of your community, part of your world. And I like just the fact that you're out there. Talk a little bit more about building community around your book and being an author. You talked about Facebook and being out there and communicating through community there. You have a podcast. What other tools or things are you using to build community around what you're doing?
Yeah, social media obviously is a key one. I'm not one that has really ever loved social media. And that's odd for writing a book that is based on my Facebook page, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is that for me has been like a personal journal. And so I have to remind myself sometimes this is going out to a lot of people. But in addition to just my own personal Facebook page, I did have to start if you want to call it, a company, so to speak, or, the Holly's Highlights or my book, whatever you want to cast it as, but a separate Facebook page, a separate Instagram, a separate TikTok, all of that, LinkedIn, as well as even Twitter, getting involved in all those other social media avenues. And it doesn't mean that you have to do all of them. You find what works for you. And so what I found was obviously Facebook was something that worked really well for me, but then I found more of my audience building in a demographic that uses Instagram. So I went out into that and found that grew legs of its own. So then of course went out into TikTok, and it was crazy when I had over, I think it was up to 10,000 views in such a short amount of time. It was like, okay, this isn't new to me, but this seems to be where people are gravitating to. So again, it's not necessarily what works for you. It's what works for them, right? Where are you gathering the people who are wanting to become loyal listeners, loyal followers, and loyal guests, clients of yours, and you go with that.
Awesome. So talk a little bit about feedback. Have you had people reaching back to you, maybe around the book, around the podcast, who have worked with you in the past? Talk about a little bit about what it means for you to have feedback on what you're putting out in the world.
I'm so grateful for people who are willing to take time to encourage me. I'll never forget doing coaching calls and meetings. And I had a letter appear one day, and it was just talking from this one entrepreneur that I had been coaching for probably 6 months or so. And she was just saying, you were made to do this. You were going to reach so many people. Look at what you've already done for my business. And just reading that, it just stopped me dead in my tracks of just, wow, like it's not just a service you're providing. You're being a part of someone's journey. And that is such a privilege to take part of. And that's something I don't take for granted. I'm so honored to be able to help someone, because that's what I love to do, is be able to come alongside someone and show care, concern, compassion. But then also I always want to be someone's cheerleader and just cheer them on. I think we need more of those in our life and in our world. And so that's of great meaning to me. And then of course, seeing the different feedbacks on the podcast right now, it's a 5 out of 5 rating, which I'm so honored by, but it's the comments that are on there and what they get from it, whether it be some find the scripture that's kind of scattered throughout in different podcasts, they listen for that, or for others that take the leadership principles in each and every single one, even though the episode isn't based on leadership. I love that so often we can get so focused in one area that we forget, no, we're humans. We have all encompassing lives of not just work, but how can that filter into our community involvement of just our day to day, going to the grocery store and buying groceries, right? We can show and exhibit kindness and be reminded that people have stories. Things like that is what we talk about on Holly's Highlights. So again, just being able to see those comments of how it's impacting them on a day-to-day basis in their day-to-day life, that's touching. And then of course, from the book, a few comments that I've gotten recently. One was from Dan Cathy, who is the former CEO of Chick-fil-A. Currently, I believe it's the chairman of the board for Chick-fil-A. And he sent me a video just encouraging me and just saying, you are doing great things. And just for someone to take the time to, one, acknowledge what I'm doing, see value in it, and then reach out and say, good job. That pat on the back. My love language is those words of aspiration or
Yeah.
affirmation. And so just hearing that from him was just touching, doesn't even begin to express how much it meant to me. So I'm grateful for those who have taken time in any of those avenues to be able to reach out and just say, thank you or good job. That makes a difference. And it inspires me then to go out and thank those around me and encourage those around me and be able to pay it forward in what other people are doing in their lives.
It's interesting. The one thing I've been picking up on from some of the readers is that when they see a book on the shelf by you, for example, they're looking at that going, well, I guess Holly's attained a certain level, or she's climbed the mountain, and now she's looking down to us people down below saying, follow me, I've figured out life and I have it all figured out. And we have this perception that people who have a podcast or a book, a coaching course, that you've attained something and you're here to teach and instruct. But I think the thing that people don't understand is we're still working through things ourselves. We're still on our own journey. We're still growing. We're still developing, right? Not that we have everything put together in a nice, clean little box with a bow on top. What is something that you're working on right now that's something that's really important to you, and you're seeing development, you're seeing growth, you have a target for yourself personally that you're working towards? What is that for you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I've just got to go back to all of that you just shared. I think it's so important to have a growth mindset.
Thank you.
And we all every single day have an opportunity to learn from one another, and it's not those who have necessarily even gone before us and paved the way with their book or their podcast or excelled in being the CEO of this or whatever. It's not that. It's I look at my 12-year-old son, and I learned something every day from him, and I'm so grateful. And I'll go to the grocery store and watch the kindness of a stranger to someone else, and I learned something from them. So I think there are opportunities to learn from each other every day, and I'm so grateful for those. And being able to put out this podcast of Holly's Highlights, being able to put out the book of Facelift is not to say I've gotten anything right. Oh no. Oh no. It is simply to say this is where I've been. If this helps you, great. But I'm still in the learning process. And that's where I have to give all glory to God of He's not finished with me yet. And I'm so thankful that he takes me just as I am and refines me and uses me as he would see fit to encourage and help others how I may, but then also for me to be on that receiving end and learn and grow from others. I'm so grateful for that and so humbled by that. As for what I am working on right now, it is still the book. There's so much involved in going into now marketing the book. And I was so thankful for an author, Arlene Pellicane. She's an amazing woman who has been so gracious in her own right of walking me through some of this path early on. And she just encouraged me at the beginning that it is not like the olden days, so to speak, where you write a book and everything is done for you and you can just kind of wash your hands and sit back and wait for a check. And it's not that those were her words. It's the meaning behind it was, you've got to get ready for the hard work is after you write the book. Right. It's the marketing, and it's not just going to come from the publisher. It's you. And so right now, even last night, our family went and celebrated the pre-launch of the book with a special dessert and coffee night together at a nice restaurant. And my nephew was asking me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard has this been? And I'm like, 11. But the thing is I'm not done yet. Yeah. And then my other nephew's girlfriend asked me, well, what are you looking for now that it's done? And I was like, ask me in 3 years, because a book has a book life of 3 years. And so once it releases, you're now in marketing mode. And for those next 3 years, you're doing book signings and you're out there speaking at engagements for it and making sure that the passion, the livelihood of the book itself is still out there and going and thriving. So I have a lot on my plate still to do in not only these days to come, but even in these 3 years to come. So that is one of my focuses, along with continuing to grow myself in the different areas. And as always, my number one priority is to put my kids first. So I'm thankful that they've been along with me through all of this journey. There's been days that I had my hands in my or my head in my hands at my table and just, I'm done. I'm not doing this. I'm going to pull it. And my son would come up and put his arm around me and just say, no, Mom, you got this. This is what you're made to do. You've got to finish this. And so they've just been such encouragers to me. And again, we've been able to learn so much from each other through all of this process too, perseverance and grit and not quitting.
Yeah. Wow. You got some great kids around you. That's amazing to have that support. Um, what's your anticipation now that the book is going to be coming into the world? What kind of doors are you hoping that this book might open for you that maybe had you not had a book, those doors might not be available to you? What are you anticipating?
A good question, because I'm not sure if I'm completely honest if I've thought of that. For me, it truly is to love and care for others. And so for me, it's more of I sure hope that this reaches people where they're at. And for those people who just, whenever we're discouraged, whenever we're going through trials or tough times, we tend to just hang our head, right? And I just want them to see that there is hope and that you can have a lifting of your face. That you can be encouraged, that you can get through whatever you are facing, even if it's not the outcome you are wanting. There is still good. There is still hope in everything, every single day that we can look for. So for me, it's about what others are going to get out of it. And that's what excites me. That's what gives me that passion for it coming out. But then also I'm excited about what it's going to do in cancer research. I know that sounds like a weird transition, but a portion of all the proceeds of Facelift will be going to Huntsman Cancer Foundation. And that is the hospital, the foundation that has treated both of my parents through their cancer diagnosis. My dad with multiple myeloma, he has gone through 2 remissions of it now. So thank the Lord. And then my mom, of course, when she was diagnosed in 2019 with glioblastoma, she had a very courageous battle for 7.5 months. And unfortunately, it took her life. But Huntsman handled both of them. And I don't even want to say handled, I want to say cared for both of them so kindly, so tenderly, with such wisdom, and yet not seeing just the disease, but seeing the person behind it. And I'm so grateful for the people up there at Huntsman and the families that have to go through this. My heart hurts for them. Any type of cancer, any type of heartache. So yeah, a portion of the proceeds will be going to Huntsman Cancer to help fight cancer and help other families in need. So I'm excited for what it can do for that too, and opening doors there.
It's interesting. Thank you for doing that. That's amazing to know that. And that would, I think, maybe help some people to go, you know what, I'm going to support the book. I'm definitely going to do that if that's where some of the resources are going to. That's amazing. One thing I picked up on too, and you mentioned going to the store and seeing some kindness demonstrated between people and how that inspires you. I think along with the title of your book, if we can lift our faces and be more aware of what's going on around us, that's where we're going to find inspiration. Because I find that in our day-to-day, we have so much pressure and so much, as parents, as busy people, our faces are down. We're looking down at our feet. We're kind of just doing our thing and trying to get through the day. But I love the idea of your book and asking us to lift our faces up and be more aware of what's happening around us and appreciate the goodness that's out there and how we can contribute to that. That's what I'm picking up on from your comments and what you're saying is we have a duty, a responsibility to be more focused on those around us than just ourselves all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I think I shared it in my book. I'm not really sure if it was in my book or on my blog, but on my website. But I was passing by on the way to Huntsman one day to be with my dad. I was passing by this gentleman who was out on a sidewalk on a busy street. And he had his hands lifted and his face lifted up to the sky, and the sun was just beaming down on his face. And you could tell that he was just basking in the sun, right? And as I watched him, I just was overwhelmed with just the inner meaning that I felt like of what he was doing. Of in the midst of chaos, there was traffic all around him. There was loud noise. There was congestion. All of this. He didn't sit there and look down and press through of, okay, getting through the noise of life. Instead, he realized, wait, there's something good happening right here. There's the sun shining down, and he just lifted his face to the sun. And there's so much meaning to that, in that, to me, but he just basked in the sun of where he's at. And my takeaway from that day was, okay, here I was on the way up to Huntsman, and it's like, okay, there's a lot going on. Yeah. There's a lot of things that we wish they were different, but we can also take a moment to appreciate what is good, what is happening right now. I'm able to go be with my dad. My dad is still alive and he's getting treatment at Huntsman. Those are things to lift my face and bask in the sun, right? And so to your point, every single day there is an opportunity to not get down and glum, and but be able to look around, look at the needs of others, not just dwell within ourselves. There's a quote in the book: if you look around, you'll be depressed. If you look around, you'll be distressed. If you look within, you'll be depressed. But if you look to God, you'll be at rest. And to me, that's so true of just not looking internally, looking at what our to-do list is. Look up, see who you can help around you, who needs encouragement, who needs a lifting of their own face, but then also look up to see what's happening that is good happening right now, the blessings in your life that you can give thanks for, and the gratitudes, whatever you want to call them. But there is always something to bring us hope in the midst of our heartaches.
So well said, Holly. That was perfect. So if you could buy sunlight and you could help somebody in the process, buy the book, Facelift. It's right here. I think you'll get a sense of what Holly's talking about here on the podcast, but you can have this with you and take this with you out into the park in the sunshine and read the book and connect with something bigger than you and help you to lift your face and lift your spirits and be more aware of what's around you, Holly. It's a great book. I'm so excited to have you on. I'm going to get this episode out right away so it supports the launch of the book. Would love everyone to go to your website, hollycurby.com, and we'll have links in the show notes for everything. Before we go, Holly, to your readers, to those people that have been in part of your community, before we exit the podcast, what would you like to say to those that have been with you through the journey of writing the book? They're here, they're waiting to buy their copy. What would you like to say to your community before we go?
Thank you. Thank you for your support, your encouragement, your lifting of my face. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope that you have a lifting of your face. And I'm so grateful. I am so grateful.
Awesome. Holly Curby, everyone. hollycurby.com. Make sure you get the book, Facelift, Embracing Hope Through Your Heartaches. Thank you, Holly, so much for being part of the podcast.
Truly a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Thank you for being part of Living the Next Chapter. Hey, look, we're having such a great time talking to authors around the world. If you are an author and you would like to be on this very show, I would love to talk to you. livingthenextchapter.com, livingthenextchapter.com, livingthenextchapter.com is the best way to get in touch with us. There you'll find our social media and blah, 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 la-di-da, and such. You, author, soon-to-be author, new author, currently writing your book author, published author, we need you here. The seat's empty, microphone set up, we're waiting for you. livingthenextchapter.com. We would love to have you on the podcast. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Yeah, you should be here. We'll see you at livingthenextchapter.com.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.